Hello everyone, welcome to Out of Spec Testing. My name is Ryan and today we have the Kia EV6 GT, courtesy of Fort Collins Kia, so a big thanks to them. And tonight we're going to be taking it out on our road trip simulation test. That's the 10% challenge. So join me as I tell you a little bit about this car and a little bit about our test. This is the Kia EV6 GT, and this is the 2024 model, so it has not been updated. That means it still has the same old 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, 240 kilowatt peak charging speeds, and on this GT model, the performance one with the least efficiency, least range, is 218 miles on the EPA cycle. And if you've watched our 70 mile per hour range test, you'll know exactly how that fared. And unfortunately, it's true, this car is not very efficient. However, it does have exceptional charging, just like every other EGMP vehicle. That's Electric Global Modular Platform, and that is Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, and their electric platform. Again, the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery and 240 kilowatt peak charging speeds. So even though we don't have great efficiency, part of that is courtesy to large wheels, sticky tires, all these small things, and then of course a big powerful motor. All these things are going to be working against us as far as efficiency. However, we already know that these EV6s have great charging, and hopefully we'll be able to make up for the inefficiency with great charging and still get a good result on our 10% challenge. Now, what's the 10% challenge, you might ask? And it's basically just a road trip simulation test. What we want to know is how far a car can go after 15 minutes of charging. So for our full protocols, the first thing we do is set the tires to the factory recommended pressures, and we do that when it's cold. That's already been done. And the next thing we do is take the vehicle and drive it down to precisely 10% state of charge and precondition the battery for fast charging. This is again simulating a road trip. Oftentimes when you're on a road trip, you will pull in with a low state of charge in order to take advantage of your fast charging speeds. However, not everyone likes to pull in at 0% out of spec style, so this is a happy medium. 10% is a good place to stop. And additionally, we have the battery preconditioned, which is something that you would probably be doing on a road trip. You would want to make sure your battery is preconditioned in the right temperature range so that you can get peak charging speeds right when you plug in to minimize charging times. So again, that's what we've done. And with our car at 10% fully preconditioned, we're going to go ahead and just plug into the Electrify America charger right here. Rare sight where it is open completely and it is still daytime, but we'll just go ahead and plug in. Now, when we plug in, there's actually a little bit of a delay between when we plug it in and when it really starts charging. We call that the handshake time, and we record it separately. So we're going to have 15 minutes of actual charging. During those 15 minutes, I will have the car on and I will have the climate control running. And this is again simulating a road trip. Oftentimes when you're charging, you're in your car hanging out and you'll have climate control running to make sure you're comfortable. This is actually a pretty important detail because when you have climate control running, it requires the HVAC system to work, and that same HVAC system is responsible for making sure the battery maintains a nice temperature. So while it's trying to keep the battery cold, it's also trying to keep your cabin at the right temperature. It adds extra stress to the system, and it can lead to overheating, which is something, again, a bit realistic. If you're on a road trip and you're in the car, this is something that you would likely experience. So again, this is all to simulate a road trip simulation situation. We'll charge for 15 minutes. I'll give you all of the charging stats, and then we'll be able to unplug and head onto the highway, which is just over there. I'm going to do nice, gentle accelerations in order to minimize any energy losses, and then accelerate up to 80 miles per hour GPS speed, and that's 81 miles per hour indicated on this car. I've already went ahead and checked. So a nice gentle acceleration up to 80 miles an hour GPS speed. From there, we'll just put on cruise control and start driving. We'll see how far we can go. Once I've used about half of my replenished range, I'm going to go ahead and just turn around and put this charger back as this destination. That will make sure that we do two things. One, it ensures we have an out and back loop style test. So any elevation gain or loss is canceled out, and any headwind then becomes a tailwind. So that's canceled out as much as possible. Additionally, it makes sure that the car preconditions for another charging session. This will take a little bit of energy because the car will have to either heat or cool the battery usually to make sure it's in the right temperature range. But again, this is simulating a road trip, and when you're on a road trip, you're going to be going to another charger. So this is all in an effort to simulate what you would actually experience. A few things to note. While I'll be driving, I'll have climate control running between 68 and 72 degrees, wherever it's comfortable, and I'll have my drive mode in Eco, which will make sure that everything's as efficient as possible. Again, something that you would likely already be doing in a road trip. Bottom left shows our state of charge at 10%. We've got our little warning. I'm gonna go ahead, exit the vehicle, and plug in. I'm gonna have to activate it with my phone and record the handshake time, but you'll be joining me very shortly once I've done that. 28-second handshake time, so decently quick. Let's see what we're doing. 83, hopefully we're ramping up. Let's take a look in the car. $170, 80, 90. Great. This looks like it should be a great charging session. This is more or less what we would expect, and yeah, I think this is perfect. We have the battery, I already checked, in a good temperature range, and hopefully it will not overheat. But again, we do have our climate running, and that will add a little bit of stress. So just something to keep an eye on. It just went up to 14%, but at 13%, 3% in, it ramped back up to 220. So looks like we're having a great session, and that will give us a little bit of headroom on the thermal management side. So hopefully this will be a great charging session. About 3 minutes in and still charging. One detail I forgot to mention is how this test ends. So I'm going to stay on the highway. I'll have this charger in as a destination, so the battery is preconditioning, and I'm actually just going to be staying on the highway. I'm going to keep an eye on my state of charge, again, bottom left, and once that ticks over from 11% down to 10%, again, while still on the highway, that will be our result. That's how far I've gone in the 10% challenge. So things are still going very smoothly, doing over 220 kilowatts. It's looking great. Nearly 10 minutes in, 9 minutes, 20 seconds, we crossed 50%, 51, now 52, and right around there, we saw it drop from 230 to 195, 194, 93, so a slight reduction, but I believe this is very standard and to be expected. In other news, setting up the camera, so I no longer have to hold the phone while driving. So far, an excellent charging session, and still got about a couple minutes left. Down to just 120 kilowatts. Okay, stopped it. Let's see our final stats. 49.5 kilowatt hours delivered, up to 70% state of charge. That's not too bad. Let's go ahead, unplug, and we can head onto the highway. Okay, I hope you can see all of this, but turn the car on. Drive mode into Eco. Climate. Let's see. 68. And I'll reset the trip. Okay, we can get going. And of course, a nice gentle acceleration to minimize any sorts of losses, up to 81 miles per hour indicated. Now, I did want to mention a few things. As you saw, when it was charging, right around 50%, we saw it drop from like 220, 230 kilowatts down to 190-ish. I think that's pretty normal. However, once we were closer to like 67, 68%, we saw it dropping from 190 down to 150, all the way down to 120 at the end. And I actually have car scanner on this, so I'm able to look at all the data very precisely. And looking at the battery cell temperatures, the maximum temperature did reach 51 degrees Celsius. So I do believe at the very end of the charging session, we saw a little bit of thermal throttling, but probably less than a minute. So still a very good charging session, and nearly 50 kilowatt hours delivered is a very good result. So I can't complain too much. I just hit 50% state of charge, meaning I've used 1/3 of my replenished battery. So I'm gonna go ahead and start thinking about turning around. But I wanted to mention a few things before I did that. First, these conditions. We have temperatures in the 40s and 50s, so a little chilly, which is beneficial for charging. However, it does hurt efficiency, and we're certainly seeing that. 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour at this point. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and find the destination that I'm going to be going to. Start guidance. And how it says we should get there with 19% state of charge, but that's okay because we can just do some loops or go a little bit further, which I think is actually what I'm going to try to do. I'm about to be passing by that exit that I initially put in, but I'm going to go a little bit further. And like I mentioned before, it's because I have enough battery. When I go into the navigation settings, it says actually now I should return with 22%. So plenty of charge. So I'll go a little bit further, no problem. I'm coming off cruise control here and catching up to this car, but that's okay because I'm taking this exit right here. You can see we're at 41% state of charge, and according to the route planner, we should return back with about 12%. We'll see how accurate it is, but again, we'll stay on the highway until we reach 10% state of charge. And right now, I'm currently using regenerative brakes to slow the car down, putting as much energy back into the pack as I can. An important note here is I am in level 3 regenerative braking mode. I am not in iPedal, and that's because it will force all-wheel drive. It does several different things that we don't want to do, which will alter our efficiency. So level 3 is the highest level without causing any problems for us. Make a left turn back onto 25 South. And like usual, a nice gentle acceleration up to 80 miles an hour. That'll be 81 indicated, 80 miles per hour on the GPS. Accelerate up to 80 miles an hour. Great. And we're locked in on cruise control. And we can just do a nice little easy drive back. It's still saying 12%, so we'll see how everything goes, see what it's looking like. But as of right now, we're at 40% state of charge, which is half of the replenished battery that we had. And we've gone 54 miles. We generally like to say that if a vehicle can get 100 miles on this 10% challenge, then it's doing well. That's a good result. And right now we are currently well on track to make that. So happy to see that. Despite this really poor efficiency of 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour indicated. So again, we'll see how this all fares out throughout the out and back style test. Hopefully you can see right down there where the state of charge is. there is a little red coil arrow. That means that the battery is preconditioning. Right now it is heating. It gave me a little message right down in the middle, right where it was showing the efficiency. Quick little update, we're at 27% state of charge. The vehicle is preconditioning. We're at 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. We've been going for just about over an hour, and we're at 79 miles. Things are going well. We're up to 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour indicated. And it says we should arrive with 13%, so we'll have to do a little bit of looping, but no problem. And 100 miles. Like I said before, we usually use 100 miles as a benchmark for a vehicle that does well on this 10% challenge. If you can get 100 miles, that's a good road tripping car. And we've managed to do that. We still have 16% state of charge, and we're doing 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So, of course, like I've explained, our plan for the rest of this drive is to stay on the highway and see what state of charge what mile we move from 11% state of charge down to 10% state of charge. That represents the entire battery that we replenished. 10% state of charge. We made it to 109.6, so we'll round up to 110 miles. Again, like I said, 100 miles is where we consider to be a good result, so happy to see 110. Now, let's take a moment to put this on all of our charts and see how it compares to all of the competition. First, I'd like to apologize for that camera angle. I didn't realize that that angle would not be able to see the state of charge. I'll definitely be trying to fix that in the future. However, I'm curious about what everyone thinks about this. Did you guys like the action cameras? Do you prefer the regular phone cameras? Is it something that I should continue doing? Let me know in the comments below. And let's go ahead and just take a look at some of these results. As I like to always say, the 10% challenge is really a test of both charging and efficiency. However, it is possible to do well on this 10% challenge while only doing well on one of these. The EV6 GT provides a great example of this. It easily cleared our benchmark of 100 miles that we call a good road tripping EV with 110 miles. It's a really solid result, and yet it only had a calculated efficiency of 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour. The great charging was able to make up for this, though. We saw it deliver 49.5 kilowatt hours. That's an exceptional result, and it aligns well with other EGMP vehicles we've tested. They've delivered anywhere between 45.8 and 50.7 kilowatt hours. And the 49.5 kilowatt hours we saw in this test is the second most we've seen in an EGMP vehicle. There are very few vehicles that can come close to this number, and really the only vehicles that can comfortably beat these figures cost over $100,000. Next, we gotta go to efficiency, and this was just very poor. We calculate efficiency by dividing miles driven by energy delivered, and we saw 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour in this EV6 GT. 2.2. It's better than the electric trucks that we've tested, but otherwise it's pretty much at the bottom of the pack. It's close to the famously inefficient Audi e-tron, and worse than some notably inefficient EVs, including the Lexus RZ450e and the Polestar 2 Performance. To be fair, the EV6 GT is a performance model, so we should expect worse efficiency, but even still, this is not a good result. But I think that's just the reality. When you have a performance vehicle, there's always going to be some sort of compromise in one way or another. And here we're seeing it show up as really poor efficiency. Fortunately, the exceptional charging is able to make up for that, and this is still a decently solid road tripping vehicle. That's just about all I have for you on this one. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say, and I'll see you on the next one.